So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got another great stunt performer. Anyone watching the show knows that I've got a fascination and I like to bow my hat to the stunt community, having some great names in the past on. And this gentleman has been in literally The Kingsman, Mission Impossible, Batman Begins, Casino Royale. Do you know what? I could be here all night naming all your credits. It's Rick English. Rick, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do you know what? Stunts for me, I've always been fascinated about, you know, from a young age myself, I used to throw myself down the stairs at school because for some reason it didn't hurt. I was silly to do so because I could have broke my neck. So you've been involved in so many blockbuster projects spanning over 2 decades, which is incredible. And looking at your IMDb, it's jaw-dropping. So what on earth got you involved within the stunt community?
It's funny. It's one of those things where it was something I remember mentioning to teachers when I was young, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, after watching things like The Fall Guy and Hooper and Viva Knievel and stuff like that was around when I was growing up. I just thought it looked like a cool job, cool lifestyle and everything. And I thought it's something I'd love to do, but it was one of those things that was never brought up as an actual sort of career prospect when you were in school and everything, and nobody really took it seriously. And then I continued just with regular studies and was always really sporty and that kind of thing at school. Had a real interest for motorcycles, which came from my dad as well and everything. And then I don't know, when I left school, I was heavily into martial arts at that time as well, and was fighting and teaching. And I decided I'd like to do that for film and TV. I'll try and make a go at that. So I moved down to London with a view to being a personal trainer and martial arts instructor, but also with sort of one eye and getting into movies and stuff. Although at that time I thought I was more likely to go down and be the new Jean-Claude Van Damme. I thought I was going to be like an action actor type of thing and be the star of the movie as well as just doing the fight stuff. And then, I moved down to London and was working in various gyms, training people and everything. And I was working in the West End and used to bump into a lot of actors, directors and people in that industry because the gym where I was based was pretty close to sort of Soho and the film sort of industry. And they just said, do you want to start doing some bits of fighting for films and stuff? Started doing that and then decided this was what I wanted to do for a living and trained and got into the British Stunt Register to make a living out of doing all around stunt work.
And the rest is history. And I've got to say,
yeah,
you're obviously doing very well for yourself because literally you've appeared in every single blockbuster out there. I mean, have you got a plan in place on what you actually want to achieve in your career, even though you've done so much already?
Yeah, I always thought at various points during my career, when I've had injuries or when I've just finished a long job or something, I always think if this was it, then I think I'd be all right. I'd be quite happy with what I've done. But saying that, I am the kind of person that's never really content with what I've done, and even at every job I've ever done, I've never been 100% completely satisfied. I've always gone back and reviewed it later on and gone, I can go harder, faster. We can do this next time. We can do this next time. And I want to kind of push everything further and further and keep going and do more and more stuff. I love working. That's why I do it. I love everything about the job, and I just want to keep going for as long as possible and do more and more cool stuff. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have come across so far, but I'm always looking for the next one for sure.
I mean, with your career and for example, dancers have got a lifespan because at a certain point their knees go, their ankles go because of all that impact and everything like that. So does your career as a stunt performer, has it got a lifespan, and have you got a plan in place after?
You would think that I did. And it would probably be wise to have something in place. Most guys, by the time they the guys that I came through with, most of those guys are coordinating stunts now, and they're kind of pointing at the guys where they want them to fall over, rather than actually falling over themselves. And I think for me, we all got into the industry to perform, and I just want to try and extend that as long as I can. I think once you get into the coordinating side, and it's a bit more of a creative and management kind of job. It's a different job. I got into it because I love being in front of the camera. I love performing. I love, putting it all on the line for a movie and for something that's going to be on film forever. And I don't want to lose that at all. And I want to keep that going as long as I can. I think just when you get later in your career, like you say, you do pick up injuries doing any kind of physical job. Athletes pick up injuries, dancers, like you said, pick up injuries, and those things accumulate. You never fully 100% recover from any of them, I think, and so they do build up. I just try and keep myself as fit as possible, just work on my skill set as much as possible. And I think later in your career, you more rely on skill and experience and technique rather than just hitting the floor harder and harder. I still love doing that stuff, don't get me wrong. But I think as you develop later into your technique, into your career, you need to think more about the technique-based jobs and the skill-based and the experience-based jobs rather than the ones where you're just going to be taking a knock the whole time. And I've kind of almost naturally progressed a bit more into vehicles than the physical stuff. It wasn't a conscious thing. It's just the way it's kind of worked out. And, as it happens, I think that is the side of the industry that you can extend a lot longer, the car and bike stuff. But saying that, most of my injuries come from bikes, to be honest. So I don't know, but I'm just determined to stay as fit as I can. And then I don't really think about my age, and it's not until someone points out how long I've been doing it or whatever, or how young the new guys are, that even enters my head. I feel exactly the same. There's no stunts that I wouldn't do now that I was doing 20 years ago. So yeah, just trying to keep pushing and keep everything going as long as I can.
I mean, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of stunt people. I mean, I had a gentleman called Jack Gill on the show a little while back, and obviously he's well known for Dukes of Hazzard, Knight Rider, and obviously Fast and the Furious as well. But I've got to say, you saying about age and obviously driving. I'm going to kick myself now for forgetting her name, but I remember reading something about a stunt driver, a female, that like she's in her 60s and she's still
Debbie Evans.
Yes, yeah. And it's just incredible. It really, really, really is. So I suppose, doing that for a few years, but would you want to go into stunt coordinating? Would you want to go into the design aspect of the scenes?
No, it's definitely not a plan for me. I've got to be honest. I don't know. I've always kind of said that if the phone stopped ringing, or for some reason I wasn't able to continue working as a performer, I'd probably step away into something completely different. I don't know. The reality of that, though, I don't know if I could give up the industry that easily.
But I'm sure you can't, because you literally, it's sort of your CV of all your past projects. Surely that helps you in the future with, future jobs, because your pedigree is just awesome within the industry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and like I say, I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've had, and I try and kind of share my expertise at the moment and my experience with the newer stunt guys, and when we're on set unofficially, so I'll try and help them out and give them advice as we're kind of performing together, and I guess that means that coordinating might be the next kind of logical progression. But for me, like I say, I think it suits some people really well, and for me, it tends to be the people that are really super organized and creative, and can sort of visualize these sequences and come up with exciting fight sequences or vehicle sequences, and then make that a reality. Whereas for me, I almost thought of myself more in the technical side and the performance side than in the artistic movie making kind of thing. I'm getting some really bad lens.
Do you know what? I was just about to say, you're getting like a wonderful like rainbow around
Yeah, what's going on? I think the
around
sun's
you,
just
which
ended up. Let me
there we
see if
go.
I can make a flag. See, I could be a grip. Maybe when I finish doing
There we
stunts, and
go.
I could shield the camera like this from the sunlight.
Oh
No,
no.
maybe not. Maybe I'll have to stick to 4 and over.
Bless you.
Oh my goodness!
Good
I've got
old, yeah.
literally
Where's the DP when you need them? There we go.
there.
Brilliant. I mean, to be a stuntman. So for anyone out there thinking they could be a future stuntman, how difficult is it to be a stuntman? What sort of training do you have to have, and mindset you've got to have to become a stuntman?
In the UK, definitely the best way to make a career out of being an all-round stunt performer is to join the British Stunt Register, which is our governing body, made up of all stunt professionals, and it takes quite a lot of dedication to get onto there. They expect you to be at a high level in at least sort of 6 different sporting disciplines, across a range of different skills, and it's one of those things that I really enjoyed my training. There was nothing that I had to do. I did motorcycle racing, fencing, swimming, martial arts, gymnastics, and trampolining as my six, and I enjoyed all of them. And in a single day, you'd be going 2 or 3 different places. Trampolining in the morning, and then martial arts in the afternoon, and the next day it'd be a bit of, you know, swimming or diving or whatever it was, and I enjoyed all of it, and I kept all of it up once I'd already joined the register, and it's just got to be like that, really. The guys who asked me about getting into motorcycle stunts, you have to be almost living it. You have to be really interested in what you're doing, and it has to be a passion for you, because it takes so much time to put into those things that you don't want it to become a chore or a job. It should be stuff that you enjoy doing anyway. So if you're an active person that would love doing, some climbing, some fencing, some swimming, some scuba diving, some horse riding, some motorcycle racing, then it would definitely suit you, and you would find that the training was just expanding your experiences that you would have been doing in your everyday life anyway. And then the same goes on with maintaining your skills once you actually get onto the stunt register. It shouldn't be a chore to go training in the evening. For me, I love it. I can't wait to get back and go training every day. And the same, any day that I'm not working, I'll be out on the bikes, in the cars, in the gym, Thai boxing, or and I love all of those things outside of work. And it just so happens that it all adds to your experience and your repertoire towards the screen stuff that you do.
I suppose having all those disciplines as well is there to keep yourself safe, keep you, sort of knowing what you're doing, because, I can't. Well, I can. Well, I tell a lie. I did a film once because I went to uni for performing arts, and I got trained in stage fighting, and I did a short film. It was like a tester film for Warner Brothers, and I was one of the principal fighters. I ended up getting my nose broken. Because the person I was fighting with went out of sequence as the camera panned and actually punched me full on in the face. I spun round, hit the bar, got back up. The director said, cut. I had blood pouring down my nose, and I was just laughing my head off because I was like, no, keep it in. But yeah, I mean, again, disciplines, I'll leave that to you and the experts on our screens. But can you remember your first ever stunt that you actually did?
I remember my first day on set. I did a film called Three Blind Mice, I believe. I'd already done other stuff before, but the first thing I did once I'd been accepted onto the British Stunt Register was a movie called Three Blind Mice, which was quite a long time ago, and it was about like an internet killer something, and I doubled one of the actors on a motorcycle, weaving through traffic, near miss with a taxi, with Amelia Fox on the back of my motorcycle, actually. And yeah, I was so happy just to be there and to feel like I'd achieved my goal of getting onto the British Stunt Register, and I was now working as a stunt professional. And yeah, I still, every time I get called for a job, I love it. It doesn't matter if it's lead doubling, it's great. If it's being a bad guy, if it's doing a big stunt, or even if it's just being with the other guys and just being part of a big sequence, everything. I still love it all, and I'm as happy to get a day working on a TV show as I am to get months working on a big movie. I still love it all, to be honest.
So would you like to take home a piece of film history or TV history into your own home? Find your own piece of magic with Prop Store, the world's leading auctioneers of film props, costumes, and more. So check out propstore.com or follow the link in the description of this video. And while you're doing that, why don't you use our special code? Our special code will give you 10% off anything in the Buy Now section. And the code is easy to remember. It's Brian10. That's BRYAN 10, and it's just above the finger, just here. Use that at the checkout to get your 10% off. That's propstore.com. So talking about, big movies, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a special screening of The Flash, and it's out today, and it's just an incredible film. And obviously you was involved, you were doubling for Ben Affleck as Batman, which is awesome. And you rode this beast of a bike just here. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. I mean, what was it like to work on a movie this sort of secret and this big?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously those pictures have been circulating for probably nearly 2 years, 2 years now, and until the movie's actually out, you can't comment at all about whether that could potentially be me or not. It's a funny thing. Everything we do is so delayed in that fashion that talking about the experiences of stuff is always what we did a couple of years ago. That was a real fun movie to work on, to be honest. Really nice crew, great cast, big franchise in the DC family kind of thing. And I was so happy to be asked to do it, and it was a special bike, to be honest. We haven't actually been introduced to that bike before in the DC world, and when I first saw the concept of it, I was like, wow, I didn't know if they'd be able to build it and make it practical and rideable, and it'd be something that we'd actually have to use, or if we'd have to end up using a proxy and then they'd CG a bunch of stuff over the top of it. I was pleased to say we managed to do pretty much the whole chase for real, with myself chasing the Hummer through the streets of Glasgow. And it's a great time. We use Glasgow quite often for different cities, whether it's for London or for these imaginary cities in the DC and Marvel world, and it's always a good time going up there. And they've got some great roads up there as well, with some great elevation changes, and the buildings whizzing by and can lock off big long stretches of the road at a time, and do some really sort of dynamic sequences down there.
Yeah, I mean, they used it recently for the Indiana Jones
That's
movie,
right.
as well as the Batman, which he was involved with as well. But how difficult was it to ride that beast of a bat bike?
The good thing about that bike is that the special effects team and the bike builders that put it together were very understanding of what a motorcyclist needs and everything. So although the aesthetic had to be right, underneath that, the bike worked really well. It had great steering. It gave me good feedback. We were able to, it was an electric bike underneath, and we were able to dial in the amount of engine braking I needed so that we weren't overloading that front wheel, because it was a heavy bike. That's the thing. And so, anytime you were braking on it or whatever, there's a lot of weight behind that front wheel, just asking to push it on. Then we had the massive back wheel as well, which was really quite innovative in the way that it was mounted, and so you could see straight through the back wheel, and it looks to almost be sort of defying gravity and stuff. And for them to make that real, make it practical, and make it a really rideable bike, it was super fast as well. I mean, there was nothing on the set that could keep up with it. If I'd have opened that thing up fully, none of the tracking cars or bikes or anything would have been able to stay with us. And
well, that's the scary thing about electric, isn't it? Because of as soon as you put your foot to the pedal, or it's just gone. It's just ridiculous. It really is. I mean, how difficult was it to ride that bike as well in the full bat suit? I mean, did they have to do a lot of adjustments for you to be able to move the way that you needed to?
Yeah, that's what people don't realize sometimes when these pictures come out. I mean, it's cool. It kind of spikes interest in the movies when these pictures come out. Because we had the same thing with the Batman, Rob Pattinson Batman movie as well. A bunch of pictures came out, and then you'll find that people see these online and are almost judging the movie by paparazzi shots that they've seen online and things that are never going to appear on the screen. You know, for example, the eye protection and stuff. You know, when you're riding a motorcycle behind another vehicle and you're doing, you know, speeds up to sort of 40, 50 miles an hour, you need eye protection in there. And so we do this in various different ways. Either it's built into the cowl, or I think on the Flash we actually used external eye protectors in the end that were going to be removed in post. And then we got a massive, like, I saw there was a massive backlash online about people hated the eye protection and stuff and got hung up on it, and they hate the suit because it's got these stupid goggles on or whatever. And they don't obviously appear in the final edit, in the final movie. But the other problem that you have with the bike like that is that the riding position was quite a laid out, like, aggressive riding position. So you almost, when you're looking at the traffic then and looking ahead of you, you're looking up through the sort of brow of the cowl, and so your vision is very restricted, and that you can only really see what's in front of you in the cowl, and you can't have your head up like that the whole time. And when you do, the cowl wants to tip forward and cover your eyes. And so, to be honest, there's a lot of the behind the scenes or the paparazzi pictures that came out when we were filming had me in quite unnatural looking positions, and it's because we had to cinch the cowl down so tight at the back that I couldn't actually tip my head forward, and it only really made sense then when I went into the riding position. So when I sat up, it looked like my head was fully, like, pulled back, which it was, but that was to keep the cowl from going forwards over my eyes when we actually did the riding. So you're always compromised in one or the other, and it's definitely challenging. And but you learn from each time you do it. Well, on the other movie we had to do this, and then, you know, we think of an equivalent thing, an equivalent solution when we do the next one, and stuff like that evolves all the time and gets better and slightly easier every time.
I mean, I've got to say, you know, in the modern age, social media and everything like that, it's very hard to keep anything secret. And obviously the fans of Batman and Superman and the DC world and the Marvel world, they're very passionate and they're very vocal. But I mean, with that bike being so big, did you have any mishaps? Because, you know, even stopping, I can imagine. I mean, how much did it weigh? You know, did you have any wobbles on it, or did everything go smoothly?
Everything was pretty good. To be honest, we got quite a lot of testing in before we ever got to the shooting stage, and before the design was kind of fully finalized. We kind of rode it in a naked form without all the bodywork and guns and everything on the side, and we got the handling and everything. The bike was about, I think it was about 450 kilos, kind of fully laden. It's a bit more than double what a regular motorcycle would weigh, I would say, but it actually, you find that once the bike's upright and moving, it holds the weight pretty well. Where big and heavy bikes like that will catch you out, as you know, if you ever ride road bikes or anything like that, is where you're stopped usually, or where you're maneuvering at slow speed, and then the bike will suddenly become very heavy. Once it gets to a certain lean angle, it gets to an almost point of no return, and you feel like, oh my god, this is falling over now. Whereas when it's sitting upright on its suspension and on its wheels, the weight doesn't really affect it that much. You've got to obviously think about the weight when, like you say, when you're stopping. It'll take a little bit more to stop that, but having that massive rear slick on there, I think it was the biggest rear slick tire that Avon tires had ever produced. It meant that we had I could put quite a lot of rear braking force into that bike, and it had a lot of weight over the rear end, and I could use the rear brake a lot to slow the bike down pretty damn quickly, actually, to the point where the guys driving the police cars behind me said, just be careful when you're slowing down. I think you can stop a lot quicker than we can, even in the police cars. I could really pull that thing up and stop it pretty quickly. No, we didn't. There was a couple of issues that we had during filming that it's a shame that they become quite public, you know, because stuff like that happens all the time, you know. Whenever you're doing any action sequences and vehicle sequences, you know things happen, and we try and eliminate as many of the risks as we can. But at the end of the day, you're chasing between a whole bunch of moving parts, and everything's got to synchronize perfectly all the time. And sometimes stuff gets compromised. We had a thing with the cars where we busted through the cars. I don't know if you saw that one. That was online, where again, just a chance thing. One of the cars, just as they were on like rams that would pop them up in the air like a cannon and then push them apart. We would literally riding through it, and they would fire this on when I was on a certain mark, and so I was just literally hurtling towards the cars, and then they would pop and move them out of the way, and we would blow through there. Yeah, we got the timing really well. We do stuff like that with the special effects guys all the time. It's a real sort of teamwork thing. They know they have to hit the mark at a certain time. We know we have to be consistent and predictable. And we did that, and then just one time, one of the cars, as it came back down, it just cut through the cable that was pulling it across, and so it never moved. And so one car moved out of the way perfectly, the other one stayed exactly where it was, and we just hit it with the bike. We knew we'd already planned that was a kind of worst case scenario of what would happen. You know, by that time I was probably only doing 25, 30 miles an hour on the bike, so that's something that we would do anyway in different shows. Wow. Is hit a car, you know, with a motorcycle. I had quite a lot of motorcycle in front of me as well, you know, and so we were aware that if the car didn't move or something malfunctioned with it, then we would potentially, you know, be hitting one of the cars with the bike as a worst case scenario. And yeah, unfortunately, it just happened on one take, and that's what happens. Next time we reset it, did everything we could to eliminate that problem, and went again, and it was perfect. And you know, there was no one hurt, and tiny bit of damage to the bike gets repaired, and we go again, you know.
And this is why I love having stunt people like yourself on the show, because as audience goers, we see this wonderful film, but we don't understand the amount of work that goes on behind the camera, the dedication, the disciplines you've got to have. I mean, have you seen the movie in its full glory?
Actually. I saw it on Sunday. There was a cast and crew screening on Sunday, so it was good to meet up with all the guys who worked in the stunt team and in the other departments, and you know, say hi to those guys again, and just see how everything came out and how everyone's hard work came out. And I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. You know, it's entertainment. It was a real kind of. It was one of those movies where, although the runtime isn't super short, it felt like it kind of flew by, and then before we knew it, it was kind of finished, and just entertained all the way through. I thought I genuinely liked it, was really happy with it, and I was pretty happy the way that our stuff came out. It was interesting to see as well, because obviously I was there for some other filming of some parts of the movie, and it was good to see how it all came together on the screen, and I really liked it.
I mean, the cameos, we're not going to spoil it for anyone, but the cameos are just incredible. Honest to God.
Well, even I didn't know about the cameos.
Didn't you?
So, they managed to keep it a secret right up until the point when we went to the cast and crew, so it was good.
I think everyone in the press screening started screaming because it was just incredible. So if you haven't seen it, go and see it. I've already pre-ordered my 4K copy of it already. Because it's definitely going to be one that I'm going to be watching over and over again. And obviously, you're no stranger to the Bat costume and the Batman world, because as you mentioned earlier on, you worked on the Batman, which, you know, I was, again, very lucky to see that at an early screening, and to actually go to an exhibition that had the car and the bikes and the costume. And I fell in love with the car. Literally,
car,
this
yeah.
car is just incredible. I think I've got a picture of you inside the car, just there. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I mean, what was it like? Because the thing is, I mean, I suppose the Flash is more comic booky, but I've got to say, and I hate to say this because I'm a big Superman fan, but literally, I enjoyed the Batman so much because, again, a bit like Nolan, it was more real world, it was more
Yeah.
grittier, more darker. I mean, what was that like to drive and put your foot on that acceleration?
That car was was pretty special, to be honest. When I first went to the meeting with Rob Alonso, who was the second unit director, stunt coordinator on the movie, and we were chatting about, you know, him saying whether I would like to be, you know, a potential double on the movie, and we're having a chat about everything. One of the things that really sold it to me was because I like doing everything. I love doing physical stunts. I like doing wire work and winch work and all that stuff. I like doing fights, and I also love bikes and cars and stuff. And to be able to get one movie that would allow me to work in all of those different areas and do exciting stuff in all of those different areas, it was feeling like it was sort of 4 movies in one for me, 4 jobs in one. And they had some concept art there that Rob showed me of the car and the bike together, and it just looked kind of retro and cool and old school and I say comic book, but also real world possible. And I saw it and I was like, oh man, yeah, I need to be involved in this. And so then find out that I was going to be able to do the driving for the movie was it was so cool. It just becomes a job at some point, and you're trying to dial in all the the workings of the car and the bike and stuff, and then every now and again you will just sort of sit and realize that I am driving the Batmobile on this movie. I am riding the Batcycle on this movie, and it's pretty crazy when you do stop and do a reality check like that, amongst all the hard work that you're doing. And there was a lot of people that worked really hard on both of those vehicles to make sure that they were, that they looked like what they were, and they performed really well. The car especially, it takes a lot to build a car, because a lot of people thought that car was, it's just a Camaro, or it's just a trophy truck, or it's whatever. That car was built from scratch, from the ground up, and I can't sort of stress enough what a massive undertaking that is. Car manufacturers will spend years developing a car from scratch and testing and everything, and it all gets just condensed into such a short period of time for the effects and the special build guys that are involved in doing that. And then we'd go out and test it, and I would break something on it, or we'd find something that we could improve on it, and then they would straight away be, improving it, and it just got better and better every time we drove it. And then we had a car that we modified as well. I say I mean I didn't do the hard work in any of that. I didn't get my tools out and start modifying this car, but that they made specifically for doing the jump through the flames and stuff, which was obviously the culmination of the whole chase sequence. And they did an amazing job with that as well, from where we started and testing it with small ramps and everything, and then developing the suspension and the ramp systems and the pyros to give the finished shot that you see in the movie. It was great to be involved with all of that, but we had some really clever people working with us that were responsible for that a lot more than I was.
So who was the one that actually did the jump through the flames with the car?
That was me, luckily.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, I was so pleased when I knew, because sometimes, although I was the Batman double, sometimes there are specific specialists that come in for certain elements on movies and stuff. But to be entrusted with something like that was going to be an iconic kind of moment in the movie, I was so happy. And it's a lot of pressure as well. That's the whole thing about our job. Stuff that has the big rewards personally also has the big pressure with it and everything, and it's so worth it though. But I was really pleased the way it came out. To be honest, a lot of people, I think, didn't realize it was done for real, or I'm not sure people even consider whether it was done for real or whether it's CG or whether it's this and that. And the thing with that movie, I hope people realize is that Matt Reeves was super, concerned that we keep everything as real and as in camera as possible, without resorting to big CG kind of overdoing that element of it in post production. And so we did as much stuff as we could for real, and the jump was 100% real. All the pyros were real, the jump was real, the car was real. It was in camera as well. There was no sort of plate shot. Even the shot where you're looking through the penguin's side mirror, like rear view mirror, was a camera pointing at his mirror, pointing at me behind the penguin. It was one of those things where there was no kind of contingency for if it didn't work out. So if myself and the other stunt driver, it was actually a guy called Mark Higgins, who's an amazing rally driver, does a lot of movie stuff as well, has done several of the Bond movies, driving the James Bond car and everything. We're really good friends, and he's a good guy. We worked together a lot, but we had to keep a specific distance, which would mean that I was in the right place in his mirror all the time, and it's as much about him as it is about me being in the right place at the right time, and ensuring that meant that when we came through the flames and over the ramp, that we were in the correct place in the center of his mirror. There was a lot involved in it, and they put a lot of trust in us. There were no other cameras backing it up. If we didn't get the shot, we had to go again. So,
but what an awesome scene. That was just incredible. I mean, for me, as soon as you heard the car start for the very first time on screen, I was like,
they did a great job.
That's like a lion purring. It really is. I mean, I've got to say, so you're well trained and you've been in the business for over 2 decades. Has there ever been a stunt that you've just thought, yeah, maybe not?
Not really. I mean, sometimes there's stuff that you're better off getting a specialist to do. To be honest, it tends to be stuff like, say, cliff diving or something like that, where there's a 90-foot fall into water or something. Now, don't get me wrong, most stunt guys will go, yeah, I'll have a go at that. But to be honest, these days there's so many people that specialize in different things, and it's easy to. In the old days, it used to be like the stunt double would do everything. They would do for the actor. They'd do all the parts of it. These days, it seems to be that people want more and more bigger stunts and things that are a bit more specialized. I can jump a motorcycle, but if it was a 200-foot jump or backflip or something like that, there's guys that literally specialize in that. That is literally what they do. So you've got one of the best guys in the world there that you could bring in, or you've got me who I'll have a go at it. But and so why would you? So only in that kind of capacity would you kind of pass up and say we'd probably be better getting this guy to do it. It's not that I don't want to do it, it's that I just want to make sure everything's as good as it possibly could be. And so if there's a guy that's going to be able to do it better than I can, then you have to just put your ego to the side and say, look, I think this is a better guy for doing the job, to be honest. And it's more about that than the fact that I'm not willing to do it. It's that there's better options, It's using the best person for the job to make sure that the whole department and the whole movie comes out looking as good as it possibly could be.
And you've got to think about your safety as well, because I know that when I was younger and I threw myself down the stairs, I weren't bothered. But if someone said, "Now throw yourself down the stairs," I'd be like, "Are you crazy?" Do you know what I mean? I'll pop a hip out or something. I mean, what's the scariest stunt that you've ever done that's really rattled you afterwards?
Rattled me afterwards. That's usually things that were kind of unexpected that you didn't foresee. Stunt work is about eliminating as many of the risks as you can, but still making something exciting and on the edge. And there've been times, it's usually through accidents or things that you try and sort of think about everything that could possibly go wrong and the worst case scenario and make sure this is covered and that's covered. And almost it seems too much sometimes. You're like, we're only doing this will be fine, we don't need to think about that, we don't need to think about that. But when coordinators point these things out and pull these things out, it's usually from experience and stuff that they've come across in other jobs that's caught people out or that they've seen happen. And so let's just make sure that doesn't happen, let's make sure this doesn't happen. And we've had accidents with involving moving vehicles before, when one vehicle's hit another vehicle, and then it's been a bit unexpected. And there has been times, I was on a movie probably 13 or 14 years ago, and in rehearsals, and basically I was driving a car and I ended up with a camera going straight through the windshield of the car. And it's one of those things. It was a freak thing, and nobody could have foreseen it happening. But it was one of those things where, actually, afterwards, when you looked at it externally and said, "Damn, if I'd have been sitting in the right seat instead of the left seat, that would have been a whole different ball game." Luckily, everything missed me by this much, and it was done in a second. But it's when you go back and look at that afterwards that you look at the consequences, how they would have been if something had just been slightly different. And it's that kind of thing, which is, for me, I never really think about when I'm just about to do a stunt. We've already worked out all the things that could go wrong, we've already eliminated as many of the risks as we can and minimized them. And so I'm just concentrating on doing my job now. I don't think about getting hurt. I just think about hitting the mark, doing exactly what I need to do, when I need to do it, where everybody else is, and just going through exactly what we rehearsed. You're not really thinking about the risk of injury. I mean, if you do everything right and everything goes right, then there is no accident and no injury. So it's just about everyone just preparing beforehand, and then when it comes time to actually do your job, you don't need to consider getting injured, because you just got your job to do, and it'll all go well if you just stick to the plan.
I mean, I was going to ask, the few moments just before a stunt, what goes through your mind, and you've just answered that, because looking at like Mission Impossible, for instance, I mean, going through your mind there, I'm sure it's not a shopping list, or did I leave the iron on? I mean, no. That is just incredible.
Something like this. So Mission 5, the high side, that's one of those things where, again, we've eliminated as many risks as we can, but it's a bit of an unknown. It's going to be different every time you do it. We're throwing a motorcycle sideways. I think we were at 85 k's, about just under 55 miles an hour when we did this. And you're going onto the tarmac, and the bike's going to do something slightly different every time, and you're going to land slightly different every time. And so with that, it's just, I like to plan the whole thing in my head and visualize it in my head. And I have a sequence that I have to do to initiate the crash. I have to turn. At this point, I have to turn, I have to lock up the rear, I have to wait until it comes around, I have to get off the brake, I have to then, stretch out for the road and that kind of thing. And so I'll rehearse that in my head and physically on the bike 100 times before I do it. And just so it's absolutely ingrained in exactly what I have to do is ingrained into my sort of muscle memory, and it just becomes automatic. And then I can just, on the day, when we're about to go, I'll just visualize the mark and then visualize exactly what I'm about to do. And people will see me probably with my eyes closed, pretending to turn the bars, bike, and it's that kind of thing for me. And then we had one of the American guys who was with me at the start line, and we were kind of getting pumped up. I like to get into the zone of what I'm doing, and I remember that day before we did the crash, I was on the bike, just kind of throwing it around a little bit and doing big wheelies and stoppers and that. And it's just about getting aggressive with the bike and bossing the bike around and being in control of it for me. And I did that just before we set off. And then it was like a fist bump with Tom. And then once it's 3, 2, 1 action, then it's all just fully concentrating on my mark and exactly what I'm doing with the motorcycle. And then once the motorcycle's thrown you off, then it's just about, it's exactly the same as if you're doing an air ram or a physical stunt, you know, a ratchet or anything like that. It's just about absorbing the energy, going with it, rolling it, making it look as natural as possible, and keeping yourself as safe as you possibly can once you've been ejected from the bike and stuff. But it's all a process for me, you know. It's all
you make it sound so. You make it so fluid and so simple, and everything like that. Literally, if I fall over a bit of Lego at home from my girls, literally I go into a roll, and end of story. I mean, I've got to ask as well. You know, the stunt community, do they ever get annoyed with Tom Cruise? Because literally, he's like, no, I want to do it myself. Because he wants to do everything himself. I mean, is there a line where the stunt community says, no, I think we should be taken over?
No, I don't think there is on that franchise. That's kind of Tom's own deal, that whole franchise, and I think it's a good thing. I think he's really, you know, moved the level of action movies on and everything. It's not for everyone. It's just something that he really enjoys and he's really passionate about, and he's become really good at. You know, he's very skilled in a car, and you know, he can ride, and he loves his skydiving and flying planes and all that kind of stuff. And you know, he's perfectly qualified to do that stuff. And then at the end of the day, you know, if he's producing the movie and he's in charge of you know, mitigating the risks, and because that's the thing with stunt doubles and stuff. It's sometimes it's not that the actor can't do it; it's that it's not necessary to put them in that position. And if I jump off a 3-foot wall and roll my ankle and can't walk for a couple of weeks, I'm replaceable. You could have another me in there, you know. 20 minutes later, your costume will be off and it'll be on somebody else. Whereas if the lead actor puts himself out of action, the whole movie can go down pretty quickly, and there's massive sort of financial implications to that, and scheduling and everything. It would become a big mess. So you have to think about how much the actor really needs to do. I mean, you need to keep the audience. It's hard. You don't want to take the audience out of the movie, so you don't want to suddenly cut to a stunt double and everyone is just lost. Then they're just like, oh, that was the actor, boom, now it's a stunt double. You want to just keep people engaged with the character and believing that it's that same character the whole time. I'm
just thinking of Terminator 2 and the mask on the motorcyclist when he lands. And it's just
kind of
hilarious.
That in the later editions, didn't they? They went
the
back
anniversary one.
Once face replacement came a lot better, then when it was like remastered and everything, then you're like, wow, that's really Arnold Schwarzenegger on the bike now. Whereas before it was one of the American guys, and if you freeze framed it there, you would definitely see that that's probably not Arnie on that bike there. But that was still a great sequence, I thought. I think that still stands up pretty well today. Actually, that Terminator 2 sequence, considering it was 91 or something like that, wasn't it? 1991 or something like that.
Awesome film.
Great, a great sequence. But it's not as blatant today. I think you can face replacement's so good as well that you can kind of blend the two things and overlap parts that the actor's doing and parts that the stunt double's doing, and then put it together pretty seamlessly these days to keep the audience engaged and not take them out of it and back into reality of, we've just cut to a stunt double, we've cut to green screen, we've cut, you know, which is the last thing you want to do, really. It's all about keeping everyone in that suspended kind of reality.
So, Rick, I've got a few more questions before we bid our farewells. I've got to say, you doubled for so many people, from Brad Pitt, Nicolas Cage, GERARD Butler, Colin Firth, Hugo Weaving, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson. I mean, out of all of those, who would you say would make the best stuntman?
I thought you were going to ask me who's going to make the best James Bond then. I was like, oh my God. Who will make the best stuntman? To be honest, they've all got their own different qualities, and they're all really... Most of the actors are pretty much up for doing stuff, and you have to almost rein them back a little bit, saying you don't need to do this, you know. Rob was great, to be honest, and Pattinson always came to training always super keen, and he just wanted it to be good. He wanted it to be as good as it could be, and he just turned up to everything. He loved. We did some motorcycle stuff with him as well. He hadn't really ridden motorcycles before, and we went and taught him to ride and everything. And after that, he's like, oh, I need to get a motorcycle. He really got into it, and I thought, oh my god, hopefully I'm not responsible for that. But he was great. I think anyone that's willing to to commit to something fully like that and fully invest in it, in the physical side and in the technical side, would be a good stunt performer. It's funny when you meet people and they say, "Oh, my mate's crazy. He'd be a great stuntman." I'm like, maybe not. It's more. It's not like that. Certainly these days, it's not like it used to be. I think in the old days, where it was the old cowboys that were paid in whiskey and stuff, and were just willing to do whatever for the money. Everybody, it's a profession now, and I think of the guys as professional athletes. So I think there's definitely a degree of dedication and commitment that goes along with that. And most actors are like that, though. They're committed to their art, and so most of them are willing to commit to the physical side as well, and make that as good as it can be. And it makes our job a lot easier.
I mean, do you feel that stunt performers get enough credit? Because I know that there is the Taurus Awards, which you're 3 times a winner of. So massive, well done. I mean, it's just, you get people like Vic Armstrong there, and legends like that, and winning it three times must have been incredible. I mean, apart from those, do you think that the stunt performers get enough credit in the industry as a whole?
I've got to say no, obviously. I mean, there's no recognition in the BAFTAs or Oscars or anything like that, but it's a difficult thing. I mean, me, myself, being a stunt performer rather than an action designer, second unit director, stunt coordinator, I don't think it affects me personally one way or another, whether there's an Oscar or a BAFTA for stunts. If there was, I think it would be in the action design that would go to the HOD and the person that, came up with all these stunt sequences, because a lot of action movies are quite heavily driven by the action sequences, and sometimes people don't realize how much the stunt coordinator is involved in the discussion and the evolution of sequences that end up iconic and almost pivotal to certain movies, and they definitely don't get enough credit in that respect. As far as stunt performers go, I don't know. It's a hard one. The tourist thing is great, and it's so good when you go there. I'll tell you what's my favorite thing, but even it's just that at the start of the night they have like a compilation of the year's stunts, like big stunts from various movies and stuff from the whole year, and just to have some of your work up there amongst all these great stunts and these great professionals working is it's really makes it all worth it for me, just to feel like I've contributed to that industry in some small way. But yeah, it's a difficult thing. I think they are underappreciated as a department. I definitely do. A lot of big movies are pretty driven by the action sequences in there, and sometimes not on all the movies. Some of the directors are very hands-on in what they expect from say a car chase sequence or whatever. Others will just say in the script, that's given to the stunt coordinator, will say a chase ensues or whatever. Cut to go nuts with your car choreography, and then they'll be going backwards and forwards with the director and getting notes about, we need more of this, less of this, we need him to be on top for a little bit longer, this, and it's kind of that kind of thing. But it's all a big team effort. But for sure, I think that stunt coordinators and action designers, it would be nice if they got a bit more recognition to how much they actually input into driving these movies.
And it would definitely be lovely to see an Oscar representing that, because again, films without stunt work, or what we see, it would be very boring. It really, really would.
Yeah.
So on all the amazing projects that you've been on, have you collected any mementos? Any maybe any
You mean
costume
stolen
pieces. No, liberated, borrowed. You're the creator of, yeah. have you got anything from any of the things that you've
Yeah,
been in?
I have a few things, but I'm pretty straight down the line. I can't cope with believe it or not, I don't like coping with stress very well, so I can never do anything that's not like 100% legit. So I'll often ask though if I can keep something or have something when the movie's finished, and there's usually a like a period where we're not sure if there's going to be reshoots with it or something, so they'll have to hang on to things. But I have a couple of bits. I have a few helmets from different things that I did. I did a motorcycle laydown on the Ghost Rider movie, and I have the helmet that I wore for that, and it's signed by the two directors and stuff, and that was pretty special to me. I got on really well with those guys. It was Neville Dean and Taylor were the directors on there, and we got on really well, and they signed the helmet for me, so I've got that in my case here. I've also have the helmet that I wore for the crash that you just showed the still of on Mission 5 as well, wow. Which is signed as well. So so I have that, and then they're not worth anything to anybody except me, you know. But it's a nice thing to look at and just remember what
you'll be amazed.
You know,
you would be amazed.
Well, they're not for sale for sure. But
you've got in your garage now the Bat bike and everything like that, and you're like, oh no, we need to be quiet.
No, that would be nice. I would have that in the living room if we had the space. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'd like to have like a few little things like that, but it's not really possible these days. Most stuff is is pretty well looked after, and goes straight back as soon as you're finished with it. You know.
But also you get the awesome crew gear, like the T-shirt that you've got on now from Flash, which is again very, very collectible. But no, I've got a friend that's actually got a tumbler wheel, you know, from Batman.
No way.
And he's made it into a coffee table. So
that's
literally,
awesome.
He's got a big piece of glass and laser etched the logo in the middle, and it looks awesome. And it's a massive tire. So I just wanted to ask as well that on your credits, you've got a credit there for working on 13 Hours.
Yes.
What is it you did on that? Because that's one of my all-time favourite movies.
Oh, really? Oh, I drove the Mercedes ML over in Malta. We did like a car chase on there where we're trying to escape from all these guys with AKs and stuff. And yeah, I was driving the ML, doubling one of the actors, and there was 5 of us in the car there, and we're going through the streets and getting Molotovs thrown at us and usual Michael Bay stuff, you know, explosions going off everywhere and jumping through fire and busting through gates and all that kind of thing. It was really, really a lot of fun actually, and a real action-packed few weeks that was.
And what an awesome movie!
Yeah, no, it came out really, it got really good reception as well. It's funny with any movie, you never know which ones are the ones that people are going to sort of hold in esteem later on, and which ones are just going to disappear into the into the sort of annals of time. But yeah,
I mean, I've got to say that movie and being a stuntman and doing all those stunts, I had Mark Geist, who was actually in the actual proper that it's based on.
Oh, really?
Max Martini portrayed him on screen. And I've had Max on the show as well. But Mark Geist was one of the operatives that was during, and the stuff he went through, the amount of shrapnel and his arm being blown off, and I was like, God. Wow! I broke my toes the other month, and I laughed because, you know, it's not as bad as what Mark went through.
Oh my God.
But Rick, you've been a great guest. It's been such an honour to have you on the show to chat a little bit about your career. And you know what? Now watching the Batman, that scene, I'll think differently now, because I've spoken to the man himself that actually drove that car through them flames. But it's such an honour. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you.